Tableau dashboard. Now we're going to learn the basic principles about how to structure our chart inside dashboards in Tableau, and we're going to focus on the containers in order to structure our dashboard. So once we build all those beautiful charts, we can go and group them in one place using Tableau dashboards. So let's go. Okay, so if you create a new dashboard, you will get different options on how to customize and design your dashboards. So for example, we usually go and start changing the size of our dashboard of this white space. So in order to do that, if you go to the size on the left side, we have here three different options: fixed size, automatic, and range. What I usually do, I go to the fixed size. So here we can go and customize the width and the height. So for example, let's go with the width with 1200 and for the height with 800. And then beneath that we have a list of all worksheets that we have inside our dashboards. And then here it's really important is the objects that we have in Tableau. So here we have a list of different objects like containers, text, extensions, images, blanks, and so on. Those objects, you're going to use them in order to build up your dashboards in Tableau. And the very important objects here, we have the containers in Tableau, and they are really confusing if you are new to this tool. So we will be focusing on how to work with the containers in order to build the structure of our dashboards. So the first question is, what are containers? Containers in Tableau can allow you to group up different Tableau objects together in one place. The object could be anything like a worksheet, blank, text, images, or even another container. So once you have all those different objects in one place, you can do many stuff like, for example, moving them all together using the container from one position to another one. So let's have a quick example. Let's take one of those containers. Let's take the horizontal container and drop it to the middle. And here the first thing to notice is that the coloring in Tableau. So as you can see, we have now a dark blue border around this space. The blue border can indicate that this is a container. And now we can go and drop anything inside this container. It could be a worksheet, it could be a text, blank, anything. So let's go with any sheets. For example, I have here one prepared one. So drag and drop it exactly in the middle of the container. So now you might notice that we don't have anymore the blue color, the blue border. We have now a gray border. So that means in Tableau, currently I'm selecting an object that is not container. So now we can go and grab anything, like for example, a text. Let's take this object and drag and drop it on top of this chart. And here let's write anything like the sales dashboards and just make it a little bit bigger. So hit OK. So now with this, you can see we have another object that is contain only a text, and as well it has a gray border. So that means we have one object with gray border and another one with gray border. So now the question is how to select the container that has those two objects. There are many ways in order to do that. So for example, let's say we are selecting the text. If you go over here to those two lines and double click on it. So once we do that, as you can see, now we have again this blue border. That means we are now selecting the whole container. So that means by double clicking on this small icon over here, you are going back to the container that's grouping up those objects. And there is another way in order to select the container. So now let's go again inside it and only click on the sheets over here. So again, we have this gray border. So now if you go to this small arrow over here, we're going to get more options. And then here we have the option of select container, vertical container. So once we do that, we will go back again to the containers where we have those objects inside it. So this is another way on how to select the current container. All right, so now you might ask, you know what, why we are selecting the container? Well, for the following reason. For example, if you are just selecting this chart, you can go over here and you will get different options about the worksheets. So for example, you can show the titles, the filters, the highlights, and you can configure only this worksheet. So those options are only related to these objects. But now if you want to go and configure the whole container, you have to go to the container. So for example, let's go and double click on that. And if you go to the options over here, we will get completely different list of options. And anything that you are selecting here is going to be reflected for all objects inside this container. So for example, in the current container, Tableau can show us there is still space left inside this container in order to fill it. So the whole space over here is not used, which is not really good. And as you can see, we have the text object is way smaller than the worksheet object, which is now fine. But what you can do in Tableau is that you can go and split everything evenly. So if you go to the containers options, you can see over here, distribute content evenly. So if you select that, what's gonna happen, as you can see, Tableau gonna go and automatically split the size of the container evenly for all objects. This is really helpful if you have different charts in one container. So Tableau gonna go and split the space evenly for all objects. So as you can see, the options of the containers can affect all the objects inside the containers. And one more thing to notice in Tableau, that Tableau can create a sneaky container always on the right side. This container is a special one where Tableau can put all the filters, legends, highlighters, and as well parameters always on top of each other's on the right sides. So for example, in the subcategories, we have the filter of the order date, and immediately Tableau can create a special container on the right side and can place the filter inside it. So for example, if you take any other chart that contains those informations, let's take this one over here and put it in the bottom, you will see Tableau immediately gonna go and add the filters inside this worksheet beneath the first one. So here we have the filter of the categories that comes from this chart. And if we take the next one, the customer distributions, as you can see, we will get a lot of filters in Tableau on the right side and as well the legends. So here we have the profit side, here we have the country colors and so on. So all parameters, all legends, all filters gonna be packed on the right side. And of course, if you want to customize the container that Tableau creates on the right side, you can go to any objects and then double click on it, and then you can go and customize it. So for example, I can go over here and split everything evenly. Alright, moving on about the containers in Tableau, we have two different types, the horizontal container and the vertical container. Let's start with the first one, the horizontal container. If you use this type, what can happen? All objects inside your horizontal container gonna be side by side next to each others. So let's try that. Let's take the horizontal container, drag and drop it to our dashboards. And then let's take one sheet, for example, the subcategory over here. And then let's take another one. So once you can select it, as you can see, Tableau can offer you either to put it to the left or to the right. So for example, let's go and drop it to the right. And with that, we got two charts side by side near to each other's using the horizontal container. And of course, if we go and add anything, it's going to be as well either to the left or to the right or in the middle. So once you drop it, you will get it as well side by side. So this is how the horizontal containers works in Tableau. Okay, the next tab we have the vertical container. What can happen here? All objects inside this container are going to be on top of each other's like they are stacked. So let's have a quick example. Let's take the vertical container, drop it to the dashboard, and then let's take any charts and as well drop it over here. And now once we select another one, we can put it, for example, below it, and the third one either below, in the middle, or in the top. So let's drop it in the top. So as you can see, the vertical containers, we are putting those objects or those charts on top of each other's. So with that, we are stacking the objects on top of each other's, and this is how the vertical containers works. One more thing about the type of containers, which is very confusing if you are a starter in Tableau, is that you can decide on the type of container as you are dropping the second object. So let me show you what I mean. Let's take, for example, the horizontal container, drag and drop it to our dashboards. So now we can go and drop different sheets next to each other's, right? So let's take the first one as usual. Let's put it over here. And now we come to the second sheet, and our expectation that we can put it either to the left or to the right because we have horizontal container. Well, the second sheet or the second object is a special one. You can use it in order to change the type of the container. So let's take, for example, this one over here. You can see we can put it left, we can put it right, but as well we can put it on the top or on the bottom. So once I drop it to the bottom, what's gonna happen? Tableau gonna go and convert the type of this container to a vertical container. So now we cannot go and change our mind. It's gonna be fixed. This is gonna be a vertical container. So for example, if I take the third one, I cannot change my mind by putting it to the left or to the right. I can put it only to the top or to the bottom. So it's gonna stay as a vertical, and the third one will not change the container type. So here I can drop it, for example, here in the bottom. On the second sheet, we still have the option to change our mind to make it either horizontal or vertical container. Depends on how you are dropping the sheets. But after that, for the third sheet, you don't have any more of those options. You can drop it, only depends on the container type. Alright, so now the more things that we put inside our container, the things gets more complicated in order to control the structure of our dashboards. So there will be a lot of nested containers on top of each others, and you will lose control with the time if you are building a complex container. And for that, Tableau did provide a view of the current structure of our dashboard. So now we are currently at the dashboards. In order to go to the view, let's go to the layout. So let's switch that. And then here at the bottom, we have something called item hierarchy. So here we will see the structure of our dashboard. So So it starts with the tilde. So if you click on that, you can see Tableau gonna go immediately and select the current objects. So here we will see the structure of our dashboard, and it starts with tilde since we are using this methods. So if you click on that, Tableau gonna go and select the current object in the hierarchy. So this is the highest container where we have everything in our dashboard inside it. So let's go and expand our hierarchy. So you can see that it then splits into horizontal container, and that you can see it clearly. We have one container for all those filters, legends, and so on, and on the left side we have a container for all our worksheet, and you can see that by just like moving this slider over here. So as you can see, the first object is a horizontal container, and then inside the horizontal container we have two vertical containers. So the first one gonna be this container for the chart, and as you can see, things are stacked up on top of each other. So this is our first vertical container, and if you click on the second one, now we are selecting the container on the right side, and it's as well a vertical container. As you can see, all those filters and stuff on top of each others. And then of course we can go and expand those containers to see the content. So as you can see, we have here 3 sheets inside the first container, and in the second one we have 3 filters, and then we have those 2 legends. So having this item hierarchy, it can help us with a lot of stuff. So for example, it can help us to understand the structure of our containers, how things are nested to each others, and another use as well to understand whether we have made any errors by building the containers. So as you are dropping stuff inside your dashboards, weird stuff might happen in Tableau where you are creating way more containers than you need. And it can help us as well to select stuff. For example, if I would like to select the horizontal container, it's gonna be a little bit hard here by double clicking on those different objects. It's gonna be easier if I go over here into the item hierarchy and just click on the horizontal container. So as you can see, it's really easy to go and select stuff inside the item hierarchy. And as well here we can go and have options. For example, let's go to the subcategories over here, right click on it, and with that we will get all the options of the worksheets. Or if you go to the containers, you will get the containers option. So the item hierarchy are really important in order to structure our dashboards. Alright, moving on, we're gonna go and learn how to drop objects inside a container. And now, just to make things easier, I just went through all the worksheets, I removed all the filters, legends, and so on, just to keep things simple. So for example, let's go and start with the horizontal container, drag and drop it to the worksheet. So now let's take an object like the sheet and drag it to the view. Tableau gonna show you different visuals to indicate what's gonna happen if you drop it. So for now, everything is gray and we have a clear border of the container. That means now we are dropping the objects inside the container. So once I release it over here, what's gonna happen if we go to the layout, you can see the horizontal container contains the worksheets. So that means with this action, we placed the object inside the container. Let's check another options. Let's go to the dashboard over here and take another sheets. So now if you drag it and as you are moving your mouse, you will find different shapes and different stuff. So for example, if you move your mouse a little bit to the left, you can see that the gray line is on the left side and the container, the blue container, is marked. This is gonna mean if you drop it, Tableau gonna add it inside the container to the left side. If you move it to the right, gonna happen the same stuff but to the right side. So as long as Tableau is highlighting the dark blue color for the border, it means we are dropping the objects inside the container. But now check this, if you keep moving your mouse to the right side, you will see that Tableau can change the color from dark blue to light blue. That means now we are dropping the objects outside the container. So let's go and do that. I'm just gonna drop it to the right side. And now let's go to the layout in order to understand what happens. As you can see, the first sheet is inside the horizontal container, but the second sheet is completely outside of the container. So if you just minimize it over here, you can see that it's not inside the horizontal container. So that means you have to be really careful how you are dropping the objects inside dashboards. Tableau gonna react differently depend on the shapes. So now let's go and drag a third one. Let's take the customer distribution. So now as we are dragging, so here you can see that Tableau is highlighting the container because the mouse is inside the container. So here we can drop it either to left, right, bottom, on up. But if I move my mouse completely outside, Tableau can drop it outside of the container. So for example, I can put it to the left, to the right, to the bottom, but all of those stuffs are not inside the container. So now let's go back to our container. I will drop it to the bottom. So let's go and do that. And of course, to check what happened, we're gonna go to the layout in order to check the item hierarchy. So now as you can see, Tableau changed it from horizontal to vertical container because we have dropped it below. And you can see that this object, this sheet, is inside the container. Alright, so that's it. Be careful how you are drag and dropping stuff inside Tableau dashboards. Okay, moving on to the next one. In Tableau, we have two different options on how to arrange our objects inside the dashboards, and we have the tiled and floating. As a default, Tableau gonna use tiled option for all our objects, but you can go and switch it to floating. So what those objects means? Let's start with the first one, the tiled option. If you use this option tiled, Tableau gonna go and automatically arrange your object as a grid layout. So that means, for example, if you go and resize the dashboard, Tableau gonna go and automatically change the size of all objects inside the containers and dashboards. So let's take an example. Now we are selecting the tilde, and if you take anything like the sheet over here and place it inside our dashboards, Tableau gonna go and automatically use the whole space. So that means the worksheet's gonna take the size of the dashboards, because Tableau gonna say, okay, we have a lot of spaces, let's go and use everything. But the other option, we have the floating in the other hand. Here, if you select it, here you have the freedom, the flexibility on how to customize the objects. And another advantage of the floating is that we can go and do overlapping between the different objects. But the disadvantage of the floating is that it's time consuming and you have to do everything manually. So now let's check how this works. Make sure to select the floating. Let's take another sheet and just drop it wherever you want. So as you can see, we have now gray box indicate the place where we are putting the charts. So let's drop it over here. And now we have the full control where to position this object. So for example, let's go to this icon over here and just drop it on top of the old one. So as you can see, we are now just overlapping, or we can change the size as we want. So I just can make it like this. So as you can see, we are having the full control of this chart, of this object, without any limitations. So now the question is, should I use floating or tilde? Well, in Tableau projects, you're gonna end up using both of them. And we normally use floating for the big containers inside the dashboard layout, and the tilde for all objects that we have inside those big containers. Alright, so those are the main options on how to work with the containers in Tableau. But of course, the best way to understand the containers in Tableau is that to have a real project. And that's why as a next, we're gonna have a mini project in order to understand how to design and build the layout of our dashboards using the containers. Alright, so now the task or the project is to create a dashboard for the sales. And one of the first steps that we usually do in order to plan our dashboard is to create first a sketch. So here we're going to go and draw a very simple sketch for the sales dashboards, where first, for example, we have the title of the dashboards, like the sales performance. And then beneath it, we're going to have three big numbers or three bands. So we have the total sales, the total profits, and the total quantity. And then beneath that, we're going to have three different charts. The first one on the left one, we're gonna have a bar chart in order to show ranking or the top sales by category. And then on the right side, we're gonna have two charts. The first one gonna be a line chart where we're gonna go and compare the sales with the performance. And below that, we're gonna show the sales by category using a pie chart. So with that, we have a sketch, we have a plan on how to visual our informations inside the dashboard. Now in the next step, we have to go and plan the structure of our dashboards in Tableau using containers. So if we're gonna go and translate this sketch to containers, we're gonna have one big vertical container that has three objects on top of each other. We have the title, then the bands, and then the charts. And since they are on top of each other, we're gonna use the vertical container. So now we're gonna go in more details in each information. So let's start with the first one. We have the text. In the text, we don't have any other informations like beneath it or side by side. That's why we will not use any container here. And then moving on to the next information, to the bands, as you can see, they are side by side. That means we can go here and use the horizontal container. So that means the horizontal container is inside the vertical container. Okay, moving on to the next one, we have the charts, and here it's going to be a little bit tricky. So first, if you check the sketch, we have like charts side by side, left and right. That means we're going to go and use the horizontal container. So again here, this horizontal container is going to be inside the big vertical container. And now if you check the right side, you can see that on the right side we have two charts on top of each others. So that means on the right sides we can go and use the vertical container in order to cover those two charts. So this vertical container gonna be inside the horizontal container, and both of them gonna be inside one big vertical container. So as you can see, everything makes sense if you are organized and you start sketching and planning your dashboards. So now we have a plan enough. Let's go to Tableau and start creating this structure. Alright, so now we're gonna start from the scratch. We have one empty dashboard, and now let's go and follow follow our plan where first we're gonna have the main container, the vertical container. So let's take it from objects, the vertical container, drag and drop it to the dashboard. And now as you can see, if you don't select anything, it's gonna be still a white page. In order to have an identifier for this container and make it easier to see during the design, what I'm gonna do, we're gonna go to the layout over here. So select the container and then we're gonna have a border for it. So let's go to the border over here, make it a line, and then let's make it a little bit heavy and give it the color of orange. So now if I deselect, you will see that we have one big container, the orange one. And this can indicate for me, this is a vertical container. And as well, what we can do, we can go to the item hierarchy over here and give it a name. So let's go and give it a name. So now let's call it the main vertical container. All right, so what do we have inside this container? Three informations. The first one gonna be a text. So the title of the dashboard. So let's go to the dashboard over here and grab our text object and drop it inside this container. Let's call it sales performance and big, get a little bit big. So let's make it 2022 bold. Okay, so that is the first information. The second information that we're gonna go and add a horizontal container for the different pans. So let's go to the objects over here and grab the horizontal container and just put it beneath the text. So now with that we got a horizontal container, and let's go and make an identifier for that. So let's go to the layout, make a border, and now we're gonna give it the color of blue. So now we can see that we have a blue container inside the orange container, and we can go and give it a name. So let's go to the hierarchy and let's give it the name of pans. And now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go and add blanks inside this container in order to have a placeholder for the actual pans. So in our plan, we're gonna have 3 pans. What we're gonna do, we're gonna go to the dashboard. Let's go and add 3 blanks. And as you can see now, we have it very small since it's blank. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And let's go and add the second one to the right side and another one to the right side. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to the layout and go and check the structure over here. So as you can see, everything is fine. Those blanks are inside the horizontal container. All right, so that's all for the container for the pans. Now next information, we're gonna have the charts. So again, here we're gonna go and add as our plan a horizontal container beneath this one over here. And as usual, we're gonna go to the layout and give it a color and as well a border. So now as you can see, we have one container beneath another container, and both of them are horizontal containers. So let's go and give it a name. We're gonna call it charts. And now we're gonna go and add the blanks, the placeholders for the charts. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna grab a blank over here. It goes again small. Let's make it bigger. The second one to the right side. And with that, we got the left and right. So now as usual, we go back to the layout and check whether everything is fine. So you can see those 2 blanks are beneath the horizontal container. And now as you can see, I'm always going back to the hierarchy in order to check whether everything is fine. And here is exactly my tip for you, is always to check. And don't leave it until the end. So don't check the item hierarchy at the end after you drop everything in the charts. I promise you will see stuff here that you didn't plan. So always as you are dropping new stuff to the dashboard, go and check the item hierarchy whether everything is fine. Alright, so now only on the right side over here, we're gonna have 2 charts on top of each other's. So that means we can have a vertical container only on the right side. So let's go to the dashboard over here. And now I'm gonna go and remove the right blank, because instead of that, we're gonna have the vertical container. So let's click on this blank over here and drop it. And then let's go and get our vertical container and just put it to the right side. So make sure it's placed on the right side and we're still inside the container of the horizontal container. So let's drop it. And now you can see we have something on the right and something on the left. So let's make it a little bit bigger to the middle over here. Let's go back to the layout and check everything is fine. So as you can see, we have the horizontal container, this main one, and then inside it on the left, it's blank, and on the right, we have the vertical container. So let's go to the right side and give it a color. So it's gonna be a border, and this time gonna be orange. And inside this container, we're gonna have 2 charts. So I'm gonna go with the blanks again and put it here inside underneath each other's. And now let's go back to the layout, and as you can see, we have those 2 blanks for the charts on the right side and 1 big blank for the left one. So now the next step, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go and make sure that everything is distributed evenly. So let's start with the container on the right side over here, right click on it, and let's click on distribute contents evenly. And then let's go to the next one, to the horizontal container for the charts, right click on it and distribute the content evenly. And then we're gonna go to the next one, right click on it and distribute things as well evenly. And now for the last one, for the main container, I will not do that because things here has different sizing. So the text gonna be smaller than the pans and the chart's gonna take the most of the space. Alright, so with that, as you can see, we have built the basics for our dashboards and we have implemented our plan. So now the last step, we're gonna go and bring the content inside our containers. So let's go to the dashboards over here. So let's start with the pans. So let's take the pan sales, then the profits, and the quantity. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna go and remove those blanks since we don't need them anymore. And now things here don't look really nice because here we have titles. So let's go and remove the titles from each one of them. And as well, we would like to have everything in the center. In order to do that, click on the objects and go instead of standards to entire view. Or for example, if you go over here to those more options, fit and then entire view. And for the quantity, we're going to go and switch it to entire view. So with that, we have our 3 pans as planned. The next thing, we're going to have the bar chart on the left side in order to show some ranking. So let's go and grab our bar charts. And what we're going to do, we're going to go and remove the placeholder, the blank. And then the next step, we're going to go and add the last 2 charts. So first we have the line chart. It's going to be sales versus profits over here. And as well, I'm going to go and remove the blank. And the last one is going to be the pie chart. So sales by category. So let's drop it over here and remove its blank. So now the next step, we're going to go and make sure that everything has entire view. Same for the pie. Alright, so as you can see, as we have a solid structure, everything else is going to be easy. We are just drag and drop stuff and removing the blanks. So now with that, we have everything. Let's go and remove those borders. So let's go to the layout and go to the first one. Let's remove the border to the horizontal as well. Remove this and all our containers removed. Alright, so with that, we have our dashboards, and of course we can go and add a lot of designs and a lot of customizations. For example, we can add a border for all those pans. So let's go and do it just quickly. So we can add a gray border for each of one of them in order to separate them. And with that, we have built a very organized and simple dashboards in Tableau using the power of containers. So as you can see, it's very easy once you organize your stuff and do it step by step. Instead of rushing things and dropping your charts immediately to the dashboard without any plan, it's gonna be really hard to control, and as well the look and feeling of your dashboards gonna be really bad. Especially if you want to add more elements with the time, it's gonna be really hard to extend your dashboard. Slow down, make a plan, and then implement it using the containers in Tableau, and at the end, bring your content. Alright, so that's all about dashboards in Tableau. And if you like my content and you want to support the channel, then I really appreciate it if you support, like, and comment. This is really gonna help the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.